But I think the bigger point is that you don't have to meet all the expectations. Now, who decides that you should not meet expectation A or X or Z? It's you. It's the leader in you who decides that I meet these expectations because for me this is type 1 accountability. You manage expectations, first of all, to be realistic and from the point of view of sustainability of relationships. A relationship that you cannot sustain doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Or need not exist. Well, but there is a world beyond that, which is where your development potential lies, which is where you can exercise your free will and discover a few things. And that leads to growth. That leads to not only growth of the individual as a human being, but it also leads to growth for the organization.
What is the nature of expectation?
Well, you see, in organizations, in the corporate world, I think it's a very tight leash that everybody walks upon because everybody's in the game, presumably, about delivering somebody else's expectations. But, maybe to throw a spanner in the works a little bit, I believe that it becomes a game of meeting expectations and thereby you are limited because expectations are like limitations that you try to, somehow reach. But there is a world beyond those limitations, but that we can cover later on. That's just a thought to share. But yes, most of all, and not only in organizations, even in our personal space, we are managing expectations or trying to meet expectations of not only our loved and dear ones, but even socially in a community that we live. So there are expectations always, and there's this, it's like we are constantly in a maze, which is from all directions. We have these expectations coming to us from colleagues, from peers, from management, from team members, from family members, friends, community. There is no end to it.
So as expectations creep in and as a person starts looking at it, like, as a personality itself do change, trying to, match up to the expectations.
You said it, that's quite a dangerous thing. While in this game of meeting expectations, I become like a product of all these pressures of expectations. Isn't there a risk that I lose sight of me? I lose sight of who I am or I could be, which is probably even more important than who I am, because we are in a changing world and our life is on a trajectory towards the future. So I think the danger is this, that while we obviously are in this game of meeting expectations, we should not get submerged under it and lose ourselves.
That was very well put across. Like you spoke about limitation, once you start getting into this game, you're limiting yourself. So what is this impact of limitation which will happen?
Yeah, sticking to the working space or where professionals work as managers or leaders or executives, let me speak in first person. If as a manager or an executive, I'm trying to continuously meet the expectations of my different stakeholders, whether it is my team members, peers, or management, or even external shareholders or suppliers, vendors, customers. All these expectations, even if I meet, I'm not kind of crossing the horizons of these expectations. So that is why I call them the expectations are limitations. There is a world beyond that. So what is the world beyond that? What constitutes that world? So you have entry barriers. Okay. Now, if you are in the business of meeting expectations, you probably are not going to discover entry barriers, because the similar expectations will be met by also your competition or your alternatives to your buying market. The buzzword competitive advantage, for example. How do you create competitive advantage if you are only in the business of meeting expectations? You can't, because everybody knows, everybody has similar expectations in any organization, for example, right? You have projects, you have deadlines, you have quality, you have cost, etc., that you deliver. But that's exactly what your competition is also in the game of doing it. So you don't discover those competitive advantages that are beyond these limitations. You talk about, for example, innovation. You can't really innovate if you're only trying to meet an expectation which is already set. That means you're basically meeting a target which is already known. Okay? So it's not really innovation, it's not discovery. And on the personal space, more to meeting the expectation of the roles you play. You may be a father, mother, son, daughter, whatever, or maybe you are part of an association on a social plane. Expectations are, in my view, in the domain of the known world. Okay, because somebody who's expecting has made it clear this is what she or he is expecting, and you are trying to deliver that. But there is a huge world which is beyond this known. Even consider a relationship between a husband and a wife. There's more to discover beyond what my wife expects of me. I can deliver more, maybe. But if I'm always in the business of meeting her expectations, I think it kind of boils down to a transactional relationship, and I don't want that a relationship, okay? So even on the personal space, beautiful things like, respect, love, taking care, creating value for somebody, for example, I think these are all beyond the realm of this meeting expectations. That's why I call them that if you're in the game of managing expectations or meeting expectations, you're essentially working within the limitations of those expectations. There is a world beyond that in any context, organizationally, in the corporate world, or in your personal space, both.
As a coach, when you see things in two lights, I will give you a context. Expectations of a particular person may be not in par with respect to what you can deliver. It may be something little more less or subdued to what you can actually deliver. And on the context of that, a person is in a state where he recognizes these expectations and he knows that he can deliver much more. And how do you coach, or how do you bring in that effect within him where he can actually have a synergy with the other guy and benefit the organization?
That's exactly where coaching becomes different from training or mentoring, because training is about knowns again. A trainer knows more than I do and has the practice of doing whatever he or she is training me for, and so it is in the game in the domain of knowns. Mentoring also is about domain expertise. My mentor would know quite well, or rather even more than I do, in the domain in which he or she is mentoring me. But coaching is not about knowing in the known field. It's actually about questions. So when I ask questions, for example, that my client is dealing with or could deal with, they are questions about what he or she has not considered, okay? Or has maybe considered and maybe even rejected, or considered and is following up. And if I simply ask, Vinay, are you sure you want to go that way? I'm not saying that you should not or you should, but I'm only making you pause for a minute and reconsider your decision. Maybe your decision is very good in my opinion, but I don't obviously share my opinion. Okay, as a coach, I don't sit on judgment. Yeah. So I ask you to find out, re-look at the choice you have made or the choices that you have not made. So it is actually beyond those expectations that you may have of me. Mostly that in the first few sessions, my client would have some expectations, and it's quite natural to have. But we always go beyond those expectations because I have this benefit of not being my client, by which I mean that I'm the benefit, I'm not that individual. I'm not carrying the habits, the baggage, the dreams, the desires that my client carries. Yes, I have to empathize with all that, but I still have, I'm a different person, right? And yes, I may be having a little bit more experience in certain contexts, or what life has kind of made me soak up as what may others call as wisdom. But I'm not that same person. So I have this benefit of being another person, but then I go and soak myself into the context of my client, and I ask questions because I'm not the same person. I think of different questions. And then it goes beyond those expectations that
recognize it
my client
earlier.
may have of me. I don't have any expectations. I am a whiteboard completely. So that's how it goes. In coaching practice, it is always going beyond expectations. It is always beyond any kind of a transactional relationship that you can have, for example, with your coach or with your client.
To go beyond, one has to challenge the status quo of meeting the expectations, right? How do they challenge themselves and get out of that?
I would say that I would not use the word challenge, Vinay. I would rather say that, see, there are certain expectations that you have to meet. As a professional, you have expectations from your management or from your team, which is part of your duty for the role that you are being paid for, and that you have to fulfill. And so that is something, Charles Handy, one of my favorite authors, refers to as the type 1 accountability. So those type 1 accountabilities, both in the working space, professional space, as well as in the personal space, one has to deliver. You are a spouse to your partner, you are a son or a daughter to your parents, you are an elder brother or a sister, whatever. Whichever relationship you have, both in the working as well as the personal space, there are certain things you have to tell, certain expectations you have to meet. But I think the bigger point is that you don't have to meet all the expectations. Now, who decides that you should not meet expectation A or X or Z? It's you. It's the leader in you who decides that I meet these expectations because for me this is type 1 accountability. Without this, I am not functional in the role that I play. I play the role as a manager, I play the role as reporting to my management, I play the role as a team member, as an individual contributor, as a colleague, as a friend. So different hats that we wear, okay, in different contexts. We have always, if we ask ourselves, we always can say, this is what, as I referred to Charles Handy's definition of type 1 accountability, this I have to do it. I think in Hindi or Sanskrit Hindi, you call it kartavya.
Kartavya.
I think this is a little bit larger word than just duty, for example. And also there's another beautiful word we have, which we call daitva.
Daitva, yes.
Okay. Now daitva also, I think, is a little bit more weighted than just responsibility. Job description, for example. You have roles and responsibilities written, but do you only deliver up to that? You don't. Okay. If you deliver less than that, there is a problem because that's your type 1 accountability.
Correct.
But there is much more everybody does and can do. Okay. Now, if we only try to deliver what is asked of us or expected of us, I think we are limiting our capabilities. We are not exploring what we have the potential for. Okay. Of course, you cannot go just berserk about doing whatever you please. No. It is also defined, it's like your two concentric circles. The first one is type 1 accountability, and other maybe is like Handy says, the type 2 accountability. And that's about what you can choose to do beyond your type 1 accountability. Okay, and that's what I mean as, going beyond those limitations which your expectations kind of bind you in. So beyond your kartavya, kartavya is a bigger word in my view because kartavya is something you decide what's your kartavya. Nobody tells you, okay? Daitva also is, I think, a bigger word than responsibility because you decide this is the daitva I have towards so and so. And this is basically because you are thinking about which hat you are wearing, what role you are playing. So when you decide yourself what is your kartavya, what is your daitva, you probably already breached those expectations, the limitations of the, and there is much more than daitva kartavya because there is a huge world sitting outside, which is about creativity, which is about fun, which is about joy, which is about health management, mental health nowadays, trending so much as you tell me. So all these things are beyond this realm of this limitation of the game of the meeting expectations.
With respect to understanding the realistic expectation and unrealistic expectations, how do one differentiate that?
Well, I mean, see, what I can deliver with my capabilities for me are realistic expectations that I should try to meet. What I cannot deliver with my capabilities are unrealistic for me. But that does not prevent somebody else expecting from me what I believe is unrealistic for me to deliver. And that's exactly where the acceptance of the self becomes so important in leadership. And when I say leadership, I'm talking about leading your own life. It's not about influencing others only. If I don't take decisions and I'm not clear about who am I, which includes my limitations, my limitations of my capabilities, my capacities, for example, including the resources of time, knowledge, everything that I can leverage. Now, if somebody is expecting more than what I can deliver, I have to make a choice that this is beyond what I can deliver. And that's where, we did this episode some time back about the power of saying no. Then I have to learn how to say no. I can't deliver this. Okay, this is not possible for me. Okay, now, which takes for sure more than a pinch of conviction. Okay, why I say that is because unless I've accepted that I have limitations of my capabilities and capacities, which sometimes the society kind of, makes us feel we are supposed to be the best without qualifying, what is the scale on which you are a best. Okay, it's not quantitative, right? And it's just this feeling that I have to be considered the best. And when we kind of, progress on that kind of trajectory of thinking about the self, we are trying to meet every expectation because we think, okay, if we meet all the expectations, then we are the best. But no, nobody is good enough to meet every expectation. Nobody has the capacity or capability to meet every expectation, particularly, as you said, the unrealistic one. But it is for the leader, the individual, to decide what is beyond my capacity and beyond my capability. And sometimes the capacity is also related to what I've already committed. I may have committed something yesterday to my team or my management, and I go back home and my spouse asks me, can you do this tomorrow or day after, can we go out so and so? I have to keep in mind that my limited resource of time, out of which something I've committed yesterday, I cannot, withdraw from there. So I have to also say no to my loved one because I don't have the resources.
With this, it comes to a question where how does it affect these distinctions, what they have taken in terms of deciding this is realistic, this is not realistic, communicating these things to the other person. How do these distinctions affect the relationship or decision making in the context of organization?
It does. You're absolutely spot on. It does because nobody wants to hear the word no, particularly in our society. Everybody is expecting a yes. Or maybe at least an okay. Yeah, okay, I will do my best. Okay, because we have this, we don't have this culture of being very definitive, particularly when we want to say that I can't do it. Because when I say I can't do it, it is heard by the, if I coin such a word, by the expector as, oh, I will not do it. It's not that. I'm not saying I will not do it. Because I will not do it would mean that I have the capacity and capability, but I choose not to do it for you. That's antagonistic. Okay? That's killing a relationship. No. I can't do it means I don't have the capacity. Now, unless the other person has also the power of empathy to understand that I don't have the capacity or capability, the relationship, kinds of get splintered. So these are the risks that you have when you have to say no, for example, about meeting certain expectations which are unrealistic because you don't have the capacity or capability. But if I say that I cannot do it and it is driven by I don't like you, that's why I will not do it. So I'm actually saying to myself, I will not do it for Vinay. I will get caught. People understand it. Because they understand that, yes, I can do it, but I'm deciding not to do it for him or her. And that definitely kills a relationship. In the world of management, where managers, executives spend their life, relationships don't have to be always driven by liking or disliking. Relationships are driven by what role you are playing. And if you're playing a certain role and you have to have a relationship with this peer or that manager or this team member of yours, then you have to have it, because otherwise you are not able to deliver the role and the responsibility that you have. Okay? And for that you have the resources, for sure. If you don't have, then you have to say, no, I don't have. Sometimes, as I remember you asked some time back that nowadays there is a lot of situation, I see that in my coaching practice also, that people are sometimes asked to deliver beyond what they have the resources, and particularly time, or sometimes tools and systems, or sometimes archaic tools are available, but they're expected to deliver quality for which they need more modern tools or new tools or whatever, and the company or the management has not invested for it. So that also goes into the same box of unrealistic expectations. And there also you have to say no, and still not just survive, but actually still progress and go ahead.
I mean, how do you manage the pressure of expectations? And today, especially in instant gratification, constant connectivity in this world, how do you manage the pressure lines and immediate instant deliveries and scenarios like that?
I think that the only way to manage, it may sound a little bit old-fashioned, but is to be very conscious about what is your role, what's your duty, what's your kartavya, what is your responsibility or daitva, who is responsible for the wellness of your own life. After all, nobody is going to take care of my life. Even as a coach, I don't take care of the life of my client. I nudge, push, ask questions, and they decide what they have to do. They bear the consequences, for sure. Yes, I'm there to support them. I'm there to help them continue to have their resolve to execute what they have decided to do. I'm there to share whatever life has taught me in different situations, how to handle different things. But I'm still not running their life. So it is for the individual to decide what is the reality and accept that reality, including the limitations of capacity, capability, even vulnerabilities, for example. We talked about that some time back. And thereby only one has the clarity of thought that these are expectations I can meet and I will meet, okay, and I will commit to and I will deliver. And these are expectations that I cannot, not I will not, but I cannot. I can't add anything more. It is about clarity of thought, which comes from accepting who you are and what do you have as resources at your disposal, including time, knowledge, tools, technology, everything.
How do you approach, say, managing expectations of others by being true to yourself and having your own point taken care of without sacrificing on your approach or authenticity for that matter?
Yeah, again, see, I have to have clarity of purpose. Why I should have a relationship with you, who is having expectations of me, fair enough. But I have expectations of you too. Because when both of us meet those expectations, it leads us to this purpose. Now, if your purpose is, not aligned to my purpose, our expectations play no role. Because why should I fulfill your expectations? Because it does not take me to my purpose. So first and foremost is this, that in a relationship where we are dealing with expectations, and before even getting into segregating what is realistic, what is non-realistic, most importantly, we have to have a purpose that we both want to achieve. Then and then only I should have a relationship with you. Personal space, probably it doesn't have to be as sharply qualified or not, because you have relationships because you were born somewhere, off somewhere, and in some family, and hence you have this relationship. But over time, there are certain relationships also you decide that I cannot meet those expectations. Okay. Like, I visit the city I was born in, and I have a lot of relatives over there. Yes, they love me, I love them. But if in my business visits, I have clear time limitations that, I have to finish this business meeting, then I hop on to another flight and go to another city. So how do I manage those relationships? So this is some time back when I used to be in the business world active, and I can tell you what I used to do. I used to inform them that yes, I'm visiting, but I'm sorry, I will not be able to visit you this time or meet you this time, okay, because there is no time, unfortunately. Next time, I will try to create time. But even when I did create time, probably I could create time because I have 30, 40 relatives, okay, or friends. I have to make a complete holiday of 2 weeks actually to meet up everybody, okay, which today I can do because I'm semi-retired. I have the time. But in my working days, I could not. And I think this is true for almost everybody who is in the professional world. Right. So they have friends and relatives in different towns and cities all around the globe, wherever they are jetting into and jetting out from. So they have to say, and that is the mark of your own self-conviction, that your relationship with a friend or a relative in the town you're visiting or will not get spoiled because you are telling the truth. And if a relationship gets spoiled, despite telling the truth, either hopefully it will be temporary, or maybe the relationship is fragile enough anyway not to continue.
True.
So that is where then, you have to be honest to yourself. Which are the relationships you can continue? Today, instant messaging, so the so-called social media world, whether somebody is on Facebook or just on WhatsApp and Instagram and whatnot, we have so many contacts. But do we have relationships with all of them? Obviously not.
Not really.
But how many of us ask this question to ourselves, how many out of my, I don't know, somebody has, I don't have a Facebook page, so I don't know. But I know people who have 30,000 Facebook followers or 2,000, let us say. So out of even the 2,000, how many of them you want to have a relationship with? That is where you may still come to the point of meeting expectations, okay, both ways, not just one way, right? But if you do not intend to have a relationship that you want to sustain, there's no question of meeting any expectation anyway. But we have to question. Even on our phone, we have so many contacts. Sometimes I look into my contacts and I even forget, who is this Vinay? I know this Vinay, but I don't know that Vinay that I had probably noted down the number. So I delete it. Okay. That doesn't mean I'm thinking any less of this person who has gone out of my life. I don't have a relationship. Okay. But it is not about making anybody else feeling small that you manage the expectations, or you manage expectations, first of all, to be realistic and from the point of view of sustainability of relationships. A relationship that you cannot sustain doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Or need not exist. But if you are still trying to meet their expectation because you get some WhatsApp messages or messages on Facebook or wherever, then you are just basically crowding your plate. True. And you have a lot of, hash over there which is not your priority. I think most people understand.
Being true to yourself and being realistic matters a lot.
Yes.
And is there a format that you can get beyond expectations and you can go that way to enhance your score?
Well, that's for me, I think it's a large topic, because when you go beyond expectations, you are essentially doing things out of making a choice. And you are not doing anything or getting into anything based on anybody else's expectation, for example. And that's the, in psychological terms, I would say that is the volitional arena, where you do things out of your own volition, your own free will. And when you do anything out of your free will, that results in joy, it can result in pain also sometimes, but then it's very difficult to unhook what we have chosen to do. But if the why you have chosen to do is having hurdles or obstacles that are painful, you still go through it because you have chosen. Okay, so that's the volitional arena, but that's something I guess we have to have an entire episode on. But yes, that is the world where you are completely on your own. It's your decision. That's why leadership flourishes, because I think the meeting expectations world, which is, in my words, as I said, is the world of limitations, is transactional. It's something that maintains the present at the best. But obviously, for not just for the label of a leader, but any individual wants to grow, likes to grow, has development, okay? And that happens when you breach horizons. And you cannot breach every horizon, but you can choose to breach a few, or at least to start with one, for example. And you discover something that you choose to do beyond that world of limitations. So most importantly, for example, that to discover this beautiful valley lying outside, if I describe it like that, outside the concrete jungle of limitations, expectations, the first and foremost thing you have to have is a bit of reflection time. Okay, you press the pause button, then the reflect button, at least 5 minutes a day, and then decide, okay, can I do something? Okay, what would I love to do, for example? So without the reflection time, you are, I think, in this speedboat which is racing from one end to another end, just meeting expectations.
Yeah.
And you don't know, you can't even see what you are passing by because you're at high speed of meeting expectations. And also probably even counting who is meeting your expectations. So it's a blur. You can't see what's around you. So for that you need to switch off the speedboat and pause a bit on this and treat the lake as a nice peaceful lake and not leave this big wake behind your boat, riding at sailing at high speed. So speed is great, it's enthralling, but I think it should be treated as temporary. You should do it when you have to do it, when you are dealing with the realistic expectations, when you are dealing with what's your duty, your kartavya, or your responsibility, your daitva. But once you've done it, you also have planned in your calendar, on your time planning, some time for yourself, which is what do I do beyond this world of meeting expectations. That's what makes you discover your development potential, as some professionals call it. That makes you discover this beautiful valley outside this kind of jail of meeting expectations, a prison.
That's very well summed up. Both context of you taking up a job and you're, starting up with a new organization, and the expectation of your organization as a new manager, what you will be as a team person doing for your manager, and getting beyond the scope of expectations of you bringing in your variety, and also matching the expectation as responsibility as daitva. And on the other context, where the succession of leadership happens, like father to son, and the new dynamic starts in same what your father has brought in, and you taking it up as kartavya, and then again you bringing it up in your own flavor of enhancement that is going beyond the scope of expectations.
But using the two analogies you said, the manager in whose team you have joined also has a role to play.
True.
And so does the father has a role to play. Now, both of us are fathers. Your son is a little bit younger than mine. But the point is, we all know that if you do not give room to your son or daughter, to try some things over and beyond whatever she has to do or he has to do.
That is clipped otherwise.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what creates this beautiful, donut. And if the hollow is what is your type 1 accountability, as Andy says, you have this donut around it, which is where your team member in the workspace or your child, for example, can play around. Yes, you still give a boundary because there are huge risks probably beyond that, depending on who you are dealing with. Okay, more senior a person, you can give more boundaries, or you can say, look, you are more free to do whatever, because that person is having also enough experience in overall life as well as the domain that they work in a workspace, and obviously has then a better sense of what is wise to attempt or not to attempt. Okay, but freedom also has its risk, and therefore one needs to, either use somebody else's experience or wisdom, or has to gain that wisdom to decide how much more. Okay, I mean, somebody is doing, say, what do you call it, the surfing. Okay, I'm scared to even put my feet in the sea, but some people who do it, they know that beyond this we will not go. When the waves become so high, we will not try to surf anymore. Now, there is no coach, surfing beside them to tell, but they can decide because they have experienced and developed that wisdom to say, this is the limit. But obviously the fun comes when they are just, breaching, or not, if not breaching, but touching that limit. Otherwise, they don't get that fun. But that's a fun example. In workspace or in real life space, there is a lot without too much of risk. But I sometimes worry about an old-fashioned English word comes to my mind is the penury in our society, both in the workspace or in personal space, where people are so busy in the speedboat or in a high-powered car or a fantastic highway that there are so many things which are around they don't see. I've done some high-speed driving or riding myself, and I experienced this feeling that I was unaware of what I rode past or drove past, just because I was focused on the speed and the thrill that brings you. So yes, that's real part of life. When you apply it in work or when you're meeting expectations, you have to do it within time limits, within quality limits, etc. But there is a world beyond that, which is where your development potential lies, which is where you can exercise your free will and discover a few things. And that leads to growth. That leads to not only growth of the individual as a human being, but it also leads to growth for the organization. Because if the organization does not invest, as I think we did an episode on investment in complexity, the complexity is beyond this world of meeting expectations. Because meeting expectations is about norms, right? You have the resources for it, you have the time, knowledge, people, whatever, and you to deliver, okay? But this world which is outside that is where lies your, all those buzzwords of growth as an individual, as well as a team, as well as an organization, because that is where you get innovation, that's where you create entry barriers, that's where you create competitive advantage.
True. That's pretty much sums up entirely on managing expectations on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vinay, for your questions always.
Managing expectations, you heard it from Amit. Expectations are the limiting factors. You should start seeing beyond it. Pause, take a break, have the why question, set your priorities, then also look into what extra you can do, having volition brought into your sphere of understanding. And with your free will, you can actually choose much more than what you are as of now to become the personality which you would always crave for or look forward for.
But just to reiterate, Vinay, but do fulfill the type 1 accountability expectations. What is fixed because of the role you are playing, whether you are playing the role of a mother or a father or a son or a daughter or a manager or a management or team member. There are certain things you have to do, which is your type 1 accountability. And after that, you can think of what are the expectations that you have to say no to because it's unrealistic, as you rightly said, okay? And then the third thing is that there is a world beyond that for which you need the reflection time, okay? And actually plan time in your calendar so that you put in some time, maybe 5% of your time, into discovering what is possible as potential for yourself as well as for your organization or your family, okay? So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vinay, again.
Thanks, Amit. Similar topics will be discussed here at Missing Link with Amit. Please follow us, subscribe to our channel, and look into more intuitive ways, offer us suggestions where we can bring in more topics which is more relevant to you guys. Comment, feel free to hit the bell icon, and also we would like to hear from you as to what you feel about our little discussion, what we do here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.